I know all this now. It started with Susakina's disappearance. In the 1980s. I live in a beautiful seaside town, Coral Gate. About an hour's drive from San Francisco. Surrounded by woods. If you want to stay away from the hustle and bustle, that's a perfect place. I moved there with my wife in the 1970s. Our dream is to live by the sea. Raising 10 children. Unfortunately, we only had one child later. Lola. My wife passed away afterwards. Laura was 4 years old. He has never forgotten his mother. But he can only try to forget the pain. His personality later became more conservative and quiet. I want to be at that age. Experienced the sudden death of someone so close. How much will be affected? I never had the heart to leave. This place my wife loves very much. So we still stay here. Life is just like this. Live normally. Until Laura was 12 years old. Everyone knows members of the Kina family. Their family history. Almost as long as the history of Coral Gate. Georgina is the head of their family. Run a hardware store here. Martha is quite active in the parent-teacher meeting. They are all good people. Everyone likes them. So when Susakina disappeared, everyone has heard of it. According to my neighbor, Mrs. Salvador. Martha Kina at 8 o'clock in the evening put Susie to bed. After he finished reading the bedside story, go to the living room to watch TV with his husband. Go to bed after 10 o'clock. No abnormalities at all. The next morning, their daughter is gone. No one broke into the house. No sign of struggling. Everyone has to assume that girl doesn't know why. Decided to run away from home. The search and rescue operation started quickly. Laura and I also joined. Ranks and ranks. Almost everyone in town also found him together. Everyone was optimistic at first. The child must have run to play somewhere in the woods. Around the Coral Gate. There has never been a sign of a dangerous predator. But over the course of a few hours, when it turns into a few days, the optimistic attitude is slowly disappearing. Everyone knew later. We will not find Susakina alive. One night people decided not to look for him anymore. I want every parent in Coral Gate, all hold their children tighter. At least I am like this. But there is no way. Allows us to cope with what happens next. 2 months after Susie disappeared, Chambers' child passed away. Same as Susie. Tony Chambers and Laura are classmates. His death surprised us all. All the parents in town at the funeral. I would like to express my deep condolences to that family. But we also all think about what happened. Rumor has it that Tony was sick for a week before his death. Laura told me. He looked upset in class. Pale face. Looks sick, but everyone thinks it should be just a small cold or something. The Chambers family doesn't want to say anything. Moved out soon after the funeral. Auctioned off their house. Another week passed. Laura told me. 2 classmates in his class are also sick. It's very similar to Tony's condition. The school also noticed. Notify all parents of this situation quickly. Those kids didn't go to class in the next few days. Taken to the hospital just in case. The result is useless. They are still dead. When we get the message, fear permeates the entire community. Something is wrong is happening. No one went to their funeral. We are all afraid. I'm afraid of infection. They were infected by Tony. The school was also closed for a week as a result. All parents. All take their children to the doctor. No one knows what happened to them. Those children seem to have disappeared like this. Laura's physical examination showed that he was healthy. But 3 of his classmates died suddenly. Affect his mood. I told him that everything will return to normal life. Will return to the way it used to be. 3 more children died 2 days later. One of them is Laura's best friend Maggie. I immediately decided to contact the real estate agent. From that day on, we started packing our things. I can't let my child continue to be exposed to this environment. When I went to the market to buy boxes, I found that many parents have the same idea. At night, we have already packed half of our luggage. Lola complained that he was tired. So I think that's it for tonight. After he went to bed, I stay in my room and watch TV. Until I passed out. At 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, Laura woke me up. He ran into my room with a look of fear. I asked him what happened. He said Maggie ran to see my daddy. He told me, Maggie ran to his window. Said he wanted to come in the house. They can play together. But Laura refused. Seeing my daughter so scared, it breaks my heart. I hugged him hard. Tell him it's all just a nightmare. He can go back to sleep. He asked if I could sleep in my room. Of course I agreed. At that moment, we both heard it. A familiar voice came from a distance from my window. Sounds like a group of kids laughing. I took a look at my daughter. Then slowly walked to the window. What I saw next will continue to haunt my mind until I die. That's Susie. He stood in front of the woods in the distance. He was still wearing the yellow pajamas he was wearing when he disappeared. His face is as pale as the moon. Eyes are black. The scariest thing is his mouth. His mouth was covered with bloody blood. That's not his blood. The next scene made my back chills. Slowly the other children approached him. Those children of the dead Coral Gate. They are all wearing the clothes he wore when he was buried. Their mouths are full of blood. Except for Maggie. But his face is as pale as theirs. They all stood on the edge of the woods and laughed. Everything seems to be normal. Suddenly they all calmed down. A tall figure in a cloak appeared. Taller than most people. Walked towards them. Their expressions changed from happy to sad. The body then walked into the woods. Those kids followed closely behind. I picked up Laura. Driving non-stop. Until I saw the lights of San Francisco. When we stayed in a hotel. I just thought of it. I almost lost my daughter. If she opens the window for Maggie, her destiny will be like those children in the woods. Although I'm grateful that didn't happen, I still asked curiously. The reason he didn't open the window. Because Mom never came back. He just told me that. Later. The weird death phenomenon of Coral Gate stopped. Although no one knows the reason. But the reputation spread. I waited for years for my house to be sold. I have confirmed all the possibilities. Buyers cannot have children. Finally bought by a kind elderly couple. They plan to live a retired life there. Laura has finished college. Now he has his own family. We never talked about that afterwards. I was before today, haven't told this story to anyone. Probably no one will believe me, right? People always like to think back to the past when they are older. I want to share this story. I can feel a little peace in my heart. I do not know. Susie and the other kids. Is it still out there somewhere? Are they still with that thing? All I know is that they won't go back to Coral Gate again. As Facebook became popular, I contacted my former neighbor, Mrs. Salvador. We talked about the past for hours. Later, I mentioned that before Laura and I left. Those scary weeks. I asked him if he found out the cause of death later. He said no. But they finally knew how to stop. That all continues to happen. I asked him what the hell is the method. He said we started to cremate all the dead people. And then I was never disturbed again.